होता भी बोलते हैं आपके टेस्टिंग।
Well, friends, welcome to the next issue of the Rita Sood Oration series. And we are very grateful to Dr. Siraj for accepting. And now I hand over to Dr. Gagan Bajaj to read his biodata. Over to you, Dr. Gagan.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Ciraj Ali Mohammed is the head of medical education and a professor of microbiology at the College of Medicine and Health Sciences, National University of Science and Technology, Sultanate of Oman. Dr. Ciraj is the founding director of the Mahe Famer International Fellowship Program, which focuses on leadership in interprofessional education, organized in collaboration with the Foundation of Advancement of International Medical Education and Research, FAMER, Philadelphia. He's also a global faculty for the International FAMER Institute, IFI, in Philadelphia. He also serves as executive director for TUFH Center of Excellence, Oman. He has received several prestigious awards, including the American Society for Microbiology Early Career Award 2006, Honorable Mention Award in 2010, UNESCO Award for International Educators in 2011, and Outstanding Mentor Award in 2012. Dr. Ciraj was a Fulbright visiting scholar at the Department of Molecular Biology and Infectious Diseases at Florida International University in Miami and has been awarded the International Fellowship in Medical Education. He's also a Social Accountability Fellow with the National Towards Unity for Health. Dr. Ciraj has led and coordinated more than 200 faculty development programs for health professions faculty worldwide. For his innovative, student-centered pedagogical approaches in medical education, he has received the Vice Chancellor's Good Teacher Award 8 times from the university. An accomplished author, Dr. Ciraj has contributed many articles and book chapters in medical education and medical microbiology and served on the editorial boards of various journals. Dr. Ciraj has held leadership roles as Secretary of the Academy of Health Professions Educators in India, Chair of INDIPEN, and a member of Global Confederation for Interprofessional Education and Collaborative Practice. He's also a member for the advisory board for the Network Towards Unity for Health. Today, we have the rare privilege of hearing from a visionary educator, a pioneering leader in interprofessional collaboration, and an inspiring scholar whose work continues to shape health profession education across the globe. For many of us, including me, he's not just a teacher, but a mentor, a role model, and a beacon of wisdom and humility. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pride to present the exceptional Dr. Ciraj Ali Mohammed.
Thank you, Gagan, for your kind words. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, and is my slide visible?
Slide is also visible, sir.
Okay, I hope it is in the presentation mode.
It's in the presentation mode, yes, sir.
Please let me know if it is all right. So we are back to the first slide, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sanjay and Professor Tejendra sir, for inviting me to do this very prestigious oration as far as India is concerned and the Indian medical education scenario is concerned. I consider it a privilege doing this oration, which is, dedicated to one of the finest medical educationists in this country, Dr. Rita Sood. As it symbolizes today's topic, most of you are familiar with the Gee's story, which I have kept on the top, which reflects commitment and collaboration, uh, which is very important for academia and obviously for practice. The photograph towards the left is, I would say, the pillars of Academy of Health Professions Education. These were the founding members. A few obviously are missing. Apologies, some are being masked by others. But this was the group that actually, uh, laid the foundations for Academy of Health Professions Educators, which is growing every day. And I would say the reason why I have them here probably is, I will explain it later, because it is related and linked to the topic that I'm addressing today. And on the top right corner is where I am located now, in Oman. And I've also acknowledged some of the organizations that I have worked with and have been instrumental in shaping this presentation for today. Obviously, it starts from the Mahe Famer Institute, which I was the founding director, and in 2015 for nearly 7 years. Of course, this is our new logo. Our rainbow colors have now got into a monochromatic or dichromatic, logos. This is Mahe Fema, which is now led by Dr. Elsa. Uh, I also owe this presentation to many of those stalwarts in the Indian Medical Education Academia who pioneered this academy, including Dr. Rita Sood, late Dr. Rita Sood, uh, and many of those discussions, or many of those points that are going to be discussed today is derived from this association. And you also have two organizations which I'm currently working with. Those leaderships are basically, um, you know, focused towards sustainable development and community-based medical education, interprofessional education, and so on. That is the network and the College of Medicine and Health Sciences at National University, where I'm currently stationed. So today, in the next 35 to 40 minutes, we will discuss on a topic that is leveraging strengths for collaborative excellence, leadership lessons from the trenches. There are two important points that needs to be, clarified. Why collaborative excellence, or why focus on collaborative excellence? Why from the trenches? We said that these are leadership lessons, but why is the focus on collaborative excellence? As I told you, most of my story comes from the development of Mahe Famer Institute, which had a focus on interprofessional education. And if you have had any sort of acquaintance with interprofessional education, you will not miss this diagram. It is by the, it's actually from the document released by WHO on interprofessional education and practice in 2010, a seminal piece that talks about how from a fragmented healthcare delivery, world must move towards collaborative practice to strengthen the health system. So to target the silos that breeds inadequate teamwork and inefficiency to meet health outcomes, WHO proposes a set of guidelines how to introduce interprofessional education to get practice-ready workforce. So in 2010, after the enrollment into the FEMA International Institute, it was a coincidence that in one of those sessions in Philadelphia, I had the honor and privilege to meet Professor John Gilbert, who edited this document. And our conversation on building up an institute in Manipal, focusing on collaborative tenets, started there. Why collaborative excellence? Obviously, when you have an institute that has to focus on leadership competencies that breed collaboration, one must focus on those collaborative competencies. What we have put here is the competency framework from the Canadian Interprofessional Health, collaboration, collaborative, interprofessional collaborative network of CIHC from Canada, from where Professor John Gilbert hails. So it's based on this framework. Obviously, we had absolutely no idea. We had to contextualize it to suit our country. But then, since they were pioneers, since they had a framework ready for interprofessional education and practice, obviously this is a new one. We worked on the old one. This is a new one that has been developed very recently. But if you look at the competencies of role clarification or leadership or team functioning, all are collaborative competencies and cannot be taken in isolation. I want to link this also with the current competency-based medical education. And we had actually done an analysis and published mentioning the scope of collaborative competencies that can figure in different phases of the medical education program in India. So it was imperative for us to focus on collaborative excellence, which is, largely confined to the collaborative competencies. But why from the trenches? Or why do we take up, leadership lessons from the trenches? People who are listening to me have been subjected to different forms of leadership. You have been subjected to, you also have probably have been a leader at many times. And obviously have learned different lessons in leadership through fellowship programs to practical lessons in life. Trench leadership basically is where you are shoulder to shoulder with your colleague and you don't lead them from ivory towers. You work shoulder to shoulder and has a very collaborative intent, working together to achieve the goals. And I believe that the leadership lessons that I learned or we learned from the Mahe Faber Institute were very collaborative. And if you look at a preliminary analysis, I don't know, it may be coincidence that most of the leadership lessons, if you want to have the alphabetical, or acronyms, or if you want to actually look at it, it somehow boils down to peace. So it's basically the purpose. You have heard this 101 times, but how is it different when it comes to a purpose that is obviously a common goal? Otherwise, you would not have called it a team. A team works towards a common goal. But what makes it different is a clear shared vision that inspires collaborative action. The action is also collaborative, towards the common goals. We work together. And here we celebrate differences. Diversity is celebrated. It's not that you put everyone, into one format, or it's very much against the monolithic concepts of leadership. It is to identify differences, work on diversity, celebrate differences. So people. As far as process is concerned, if you want a collaborative leadership with excellence, the systems must be transparent as much as possible. And we were lucky because Manipal had a system which was largely transparent when it comes to development and delivery. While the first three P's are basically related to the institution or it's organizational, and obviously you have to be a part of it. The rest of it, or the next two, that is perseverance and passion. I think it is largely going to be individualistic. The passion to excel, the fire that you have to see that your institute, is at the forefront, especially when it comes to dealing with collaborative competencies. That is the passion. And perseverance is something that most of us did experience, particularly in the context of COVID. And we also had this, we also faced this, and to face the odds and challenges, to be resilient. And that is where the next P stands for. So these 5 Ps characterize our leadership that we redefined in terms of the purpose, in terms of people, in terms of the process, and the passion and perseverance that we had. Well, there are schools that believe that in an oration, you need not have keep objectives. Orations are characterized by 2 important things. One, of course, you don't have to spell out objectives. Second, of course, you don't have any questions to take. But being educators, it's almost, we are, it's a compulsive, I won't say disorder, but it's pretty much important to actually look at what we do in the next few minutes. Quickly, I will review the core principles of strength-based leadership, though maybe more than 50% of the people here are familiar with, but probably to keep you all on the same ground, just touch and go. And then I will actually go and share experiences that highlight the impact of strength-based leadership as experienced from the Mahe Femal Institute and some of them from the Academy of Health Professions Education, and highlight the impact of this on collaboration and educational outcomes. We will also try to discuss the actionable strategies as we go ahead of how do you integrate strength-based leadership into academic initiatives to enhance interprofessional collaboration. I'm focusing on an area which we are strong, so that is why to enhance interprofessional collaboration. That's how the land lies ahead. With that, this is the million-dollar question that people ask. What makes people or organizations successful? If you look at any bookshelf or bookstalls, either in the airport or railway station or anywhere else, a major chunk of leadership related articles or books focus on organizational success or how to become a successful organization. How do you become a successful person? Because there is market in it, there is money in it, and there are multiple theories, there are multiple assumptions more than theories laid down, sometimes which has no academic backing, to say that what makes you successful. Anyway, we'll not go into those discourse. But what I'm trying to do today is to focus on strength-based approaches, which are rooted in positive psychology, and how these approaches had an impact on leadership principles and the institute that we actually led. So unlike deficit-based approaches that focus on fixing weakness, positive psychology unlocks potential by building on what we do well. Well, while addressing weakness is important, fixating on them can be very limiting. It rarely inspires true excellence. So if you want to build stronger teams and create organizations that truly flourish, moving beyond mere improvement to achieve genuine success and fulfillment is important. And that's where we focused on strength-based approaches. And in this deliberation, the framework that I have to present before you are largely rooted or deeply rooted into 3 important approaches. Asset-based community development, often referred to as ABCDs, a strength-focused approach, which was developed by John McKnight and John Kritzman at Northwestern University. It empowers communities by leveraging on existing assets, skills, relationships, and local resources. And through this, it fosters collaboration and resilience. The second one is positive deviance, introduced by Manik Sternin and Jerry Sternin while they were on a project, World Bank project, to eliminate malnutrition. And that's where I'm not going to the stories that actually define positive deviance due to the lack of time, but these are people who achieve better outcomes despite facing the same challenges and sharing the same resources as others. By amplifying these, organizations can foster collaboration and empowerment. So that is the second approach. And the third approach, perhaps the one that we have widely used, thanks to Famer for introducing this, a transformative approach to change management that identifies and build on the strengths rather than deficiencies. So it was alignment of these strengths that formed a framework on which we worked towards collaborative excellence. And the next few minutes, I will just take you through the important approaches that laid the foundation and that took us forward. It is said, the more you know about what is going wrong in an individual's life, the more it makes you an expert in failure. It is also true for organizations, just not for individuals. So, a quick touch and go for people who probably are not familiar with appreciative inquiry. For most of us, AI was appreciative inquiry till artificial intelligence came. Today, we probably have to make the I small one to distinguish it from the massive network of artificial intelligence. Started with 4Ds. It first looks at destiny, what will be, and then looks at what works. And with what is working, how do we uh, how do we plan, or how do we dream, or what we could be, and then design it what should be. Now, to make it more practical, today we have a 5D process, specifically clarifying the purpose of the inquiry in the first D, which is known as define, clarify the focus of inquiry by identifying the affirmative topic, the positive topic that aligns with the desired outcomes. Discovery is uncovering the strengths, success, and moments of excellence within the organization. Dreaming is envisioning what could be by imagining the future built on the strengths identified. Designing is developing the actionable plans because dreams alone don't work. With the current strengths, how do we align with the envisioned future? Destiny is implementing and sustaining the changes by embedding them into the culture. So this cyclical strength-based model. Whereas positive deviance, again, allow me to just touch the important aspects of it, looks at the problem and looks at outliers who, with the same resources, are doing a remarkable job, identify those behaviors, and then integrate. And the next step is to monitor and evaluate. One of those highly recommended literature in this would be available on Amazon, The Power of Positive Deviance. People who do well in spite of all the difficulties within the same atmosphere and environment, they excel. And it is important to know how they excel. And the final one has a more uh, direction towards community development, of building relationships and trust. You look at the assets, you map it, and you leverage resources and sustain action, ABCD as it is known. But to me, if you ask me to summarize this in a single line, it will be empowered delegation and shared leadership. Now, let's begin our story with the background that I have set for the strength-based leadership, rooted in positive psychology and employing the tenets of appreciative inquiry, positive deviance, and asset-based community development. I will take this forward. Apologies to those who are in picture. I have not taken your permission to post here. Anyway, it started with making a commitment. Making a commitment was essential because we were getting into the process of collaborative engagement. With around 21 schools that we had, it was important to bring most of them on board. Of course, I know that numbers are now 39 after 10 years in Manipal. But when we started this endeavor, the collaborative engagement that we are talking about was important to tell each institute, their directors, and the people whom they nominated as to what we were trying to focus. And these were lessons in leadership because it was not a smooth run. There were a lot of chaos, misunderstanding, and it was important to facilitate co-creation and making them very clear that what they had in mind or what we had in mind had to align with what they had in mind. And obviously, it took us steps like brainstorming and open dialogues. So, the lesson learned perhaps is to tell you that it was very important to make a commitment and involve as much as stakeholders as possible within the organization. So, if somebody was to actually look at this and say, we were actually doing the definition part of AI or appreciative inquiry, yes, we were. A clear and inspiring purpose for the Institute was laid down after a lot of deliberations. It took us more than a year. A shared vision and strategic direction. And it was important that we aligned it with the university mission because it was imperative that the university administration uh, was made known that the direction that we are going aligned with the direction that the university had set. We also had affirmative topics to explore in the next phase. So that brought us to the next phase of discovery where we brought all the stakeholders on board and we had to do appreciative interviews across professions. We are talking about an institute that is multisectoral, interprofessional, and we had to see how and why people had to participate. Many of you are familiar with this format being used in appreciative interviews. We asked in Manipal, recall a time when you felt most effective and engaged within the organization. And what is it that you value most? And what factors contributed to your success? And then people started telling the stories. Now, we also had situations where we identified positive deviance in many of these organizations or many of these institutions or departments. In spite of the difficulties, in spite of the challenges, there were people who incredibly performed well. So they were the positive deviants, and we had to actually identify those behaviors and see what made them successful. So that was the first step, that was uncovering the strengths, appreciative interviews, identifying the positive deviants. We did a lot of storytelling and focus groups during the first 2 years before we really started with implementing the institute. And this storytelling was affirmative, and there was an intention, a deliberate research focus on capturing themes of success. And we had no dearth of researchers for doing this, from the Mahe Famer Institute. I vividly recall the contributions of Gagan, who introduced me, and a number of others, including Anand, and many of them who were part of this to define the positive core. So basically, uh, our attempt was to see through this discovery the positive core that the organization has, which obviously was important to take us to the next step. But to summarize, when we did this exercise, after defining, after discovery, what did we discover? We discovered a collection of success stories demonstrating the impact of collaboration, the topic that we are talking today, collaborative excellence. We also discovered a shared understanding of strengths being within the same organization and best practices, not only in interprofessional education, or rather education at this stage, but also in care. We also discovered through this process a network of engaged stakeholders committed to shaping the future of the institute that we wanted to start. So the positive core, which informed the vision building process. Then was the next step of imagining the possibilities, one would call dream phase. And in this, we deliberately used two techniques of envisioning the future and creating the history of future. In envisioning the future, we used visualization exercises, which obviously looked at how how your institute would look after a few years, or what is it that you visualize. History of future had a more focused trajectory, which actually identified your future vision, and you work backwards using milestones and timeline activities. So this was not someone who dreams that, of things that are not feasible, but they are actually focused, or it is embedded in the future. So vision of success, we had the timeline activities, envisioning what could be by imagining a future built on the strengths that are identified. I also remember the time that we spent on storytelling and creating of vision boards and aspirational vision statements that people put forward, in terms of what could be, in the particular timelines that we had discussed. So that was the dream phase. And how do we connect this with leadership? Our dreams generated a shared vision, and for the future that is ambitious and which was motivating. They generated a set of strategic aspirations, and they just did not remain as aspirations. They planned, they helped in planning, guided planning, and implementation. And most importantly, our dreams generated stakeholder commitment. And when we had actually identified, we had broken down the steps from the future to the present into distinct milestones, we had the stakeholders identified along with them. Most importantly, we had the roadmap ready for transitioning into the design phase. So that brought us into the next phase, designing of, or I would rather say, innovating what could be. Operationally feasible, strategically aligned, while maintaining the core strengths and values identified during the previous phases of discovery and dream. This was converting vision to actionable strategies. And it was impossible to do that unless you had the governance, leadership, and faculty roles defined. That is organizational structure. And for an institute that actually caters to leadership in interprofessional education with collaborative competencies, it was important to have it integrated to the areas as much as possible. IP course offerings, experiential learning models, teamwork frameworks on teamwork, curricular integration. And being in Manipal, we set an agenda for research, strategies for advancing interprofessional education research. We had the research focus, the research and innovation hub, which played a role, who actually were a part of this process. And nothing happens without appropriate funding. So it was important for us to identify funding avenues, including grants. And most important was the training program for interprofessional educators. Because the notion that we are okay with teamwork, we have learned about collaboration, we are ready to implement, teamwork-based strategies, had to be broken. And it's true that while people knew it in bits and bits, but the real crux related to teamwork, role clarification, and other collaborative competencies had to be systematically dealt and injected into the faculty development programs, which went for nearly 2-3 years. Obviously, now it is continuing for the past 10 years. I would also put the pull and push tactics that went along with the design phase. It actually looks, before that, in case you're not familiar, a push strategy is where the change is driven top down. Management or leaders actively push the change to the employees. A directive approach, change is imposed, others are expected to accept and adapt. In contrast, collaborative leadership, trench leadership, distributed leadership, shared leaderships use a pull strategy where they pull their employees towards a shared vision. And how do they do that? By inspiring, by motivating, by empowering them. So it was the pull strategies that actually laid foundation or was the backbone of the collaborative competencies that we are talking about in terms of the leadership. So tap into the energy or momentum already in play, because there was a lot of importance given team competencies and communication skills, the new curricular approaches, and and the way global health and planetary health and other aspects which have a huge component that deal with communication skills, team competencies. So tap into the energy that was already in play. Join with the existing groups, and one of the groups that I have to acknowledge here is the Interprofessional Global, the Global Confederation for Interprofessional Education. And then events and processes were a part of it. Aligning with larger forces are a part of the pull tactics, and we were into it. Then came looking for opportunity windows. How do you actually have opportunities to generate revenues? Where short-term courses, where workshops, where other fund generating avenues. We look for opportunity windows. Giving voice to the change story, and in different platforms. While it was largely interprofessional, people who were a part of this story took this into their own organizations, took this into their own associations. I still remember of speech associations, physiotherapy organizations, nursing, our own medical education thing, where we talked about all these things. So giving voice to the change story, publishing it, and also being a part of so many of these changes, leading it in different domains. So that was the pull strategy, and thanks to Ray Wells, who introduced me to the pull strategies in leadership. And then, of course, obviously, was destiny. To turn it into real, tangible actions. So that is where you have your action plans generated. You put them in your operational plans. You align with the strategic plan of the universities. So the goal basically was to have it the ongoing engagement in this part. And thanks to the quality monitoring systems that we have in place. And obviously, for many of the projects that were a part of it that were designed also later, institutionalization happened. And create what will be, that is looking at the destiny phase. We conducted multiple campaigns at multiple levels to ensure not only stakeholder engagement, but also support from some of the most important stakeholders, including regulatory bodies. Destiny also looks at external visibility on how you actually give a propaganda or you create visibility through legitimate means. So destiny drove us to a number of fortunes, but to summarize, a sustainable, continuously evolving center of excellence in interprofessional education. It's 10 years, And I owe it to the number of faculty members, internal and external, who have been a part of it, who have relentlessly contributed to this center and to the excellence that we have of today. Destiny drove us to structured governance. It was not something that was decided one day. Everybody, let's do something different. All are doing HP, let's do IP. No. There were structured programs, governance systems, and research embedded into it. So if you look at the number of publications in Q1 journals, I would say, not in any journals of repute, specifically on interprofessional education, the institute has a lion's share of it, not only from the country but from the region. And destiny also drove us to embed the university's strategic priorities and policies, and that worked for us. I remember at this point of time, we went through 3 vice chancellors, and the support that we actually got right from its inception from Dr. Ram Narayan and from Dr. Vinod Bhatt during the later stages, and Dr. Venkatesh. It was phenomenal. And I believe that they identified that the institute had its priorities aligned with the university's strategic priorities. And this is very important for many of us, especially people who are, ready to take administration or who are leading young leaders in academia, often get into problems because of this one. You must align with the strategic priorities of your institution or the university. It is very important. And as I told you, making it a recognized hub for interprofessional education and research. Thanks to Elsa and her team, who is just following the tenets of interprofessionalism that we started. I just want to take you through, when we talk about appreciative inquiry, sometimes it's also important to look at the basic principles of appreciative inquiry and look how the leadership had aligned with the principles of appreciative inquiry. And in these principles, what we talk mainly is about 6 of them. The first one starting from the constructionist principle. It is actually central to the appreciative inquiry, which says that the words create worlds, highlighting the profound impact language has on our social reality. This principle is rooted in social constructivism, which many of you are aware about as medical educators or health professions educators. This principle asserts that the understanding of the world is shaped through conversations and shared narratives. And as a leader, it is extremely important for you to mind your words. By focusing on positive language and inquiry, we can create an organization that is very empowering and which can which can help individuals explore the strengths and successes. The second principle is simultaneity creating, inquiry creates change. It basically looks at the leaders who basically are change agents, the principle of simultaneity. And you are driven by those values that actually drive change. Then comes, as a leader, the moment you actually initiate transformation, you ask positive, strength-based questions. Immediately, your institutions and organizations can shift focus towards possibilities and solutions, driving meaningful change from the start. The simultaneity principle. The poetic principle, which I'm very much interested in. Poetic principle states that, like poems, even organizations are open to interpretations and continuously can be reauthored. We choose what we study. As a leader, again, let me go to the leadership part. As a leader, we can choose what aspects of an organization to focus on. and it has to be challenges, or is it strengths that you want to focus? By exploring positive stories and successes, leadership can inspire growth, creativity, and meaningful change. The anticipatory principle suggests that the human systems move in the direction of their images for future. Means, as a leader, if you have had a positive and hopeful vision for future, this can lead to more constructive and inspired actions in the present. And it is more effective to move towards a compelling positive future than to focus on avoiding a negative one, as a clear and motivating vision drives purposeful action. The positive principle. Positive principle leaders, by emphasizing what works well, will foster appreciation, will foster engagement, will foster collaboration, and this will create a foundation for innovation and sustainable progress. The narrative principles, which say stories are transformative, it emphasizes that the narratives that we create as leaders, as followers, and shape our perception and actions can influence the reality that we experience. So by crafting positive and empowering stories, organizations can foster a shared understanding of their strengths. And finally, the enactment principle, which embodies the change. We must be the change that we want to see. Quoting Mahatma, positive change occurs when the process used to create the change is a living model of the ideal future. There's no point preaching about it. Walk the talk. Stories are transformative, and these narratives we construct must tell about ourselves. To summarize, if you look at the way we went, I would like to bring Socrates here. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Before I wind up, I will probably also insert one framework that helped us in change management as far as these changes were concerned. Obviously, as I said, they were rooted in positive psychology. They were rooted in strength-based leadership principles, but there were difficulties. There were times when we had to face challenges. And one of those strategies or the frameworks, some of you probably would have done this, would have read this book, Switch. And in Switch, it identifies three important components, the Switch framework. The first is the rational mind, logical, analytical, says that, look, I got to do these things as far as the institute is concerned. These are my priorities. These are the funds available. These are the strengths available, as well, whatever we said. And then comes the elephant, the emotional drive, the instinctive side. It can motivate, it can demotivate. Of all, you want to start an IP institute. There are institutes where education is free, and you are going to start an institute with a fee, and that too focused on interprofessional education, not heard of. But of course, there was the other side too, the elephant part, the path. The path is the external conditions that shape behavior and change. It basically is the environment and context. So, linking to the strength-based principles, we had to do three things. We had to direct the rider. Directing the rider, obviously, is following the bright spots, since you are focusing on, appreciative inquiry, positive deviance, and then move to the destination. Motivating the elephant was basically envisioning the inspiring future, find the feeling, and be with the people and grow your people. Shaping the path was tweaking the environment, building the habits that was essential to sustain it, and rally the herd. So it was important to look at a rational mind. It was important to look at emotional drive. It was also equally important to look at environment and context. But what we did was to try a cocktail strategy. So definition phase, what basically looked at the vision that was actually also linked for the directing the ride, the first two phases. Using logic and evidence, we had to actually research on what are the benefits and influence the decision makers. The second one, obviously, collated with identifying people who did things in spite of adverse conditions or in spite of not so favorable. So identifying successful interprofessional collaborations, which were already happening in the university, and also highlight the best practices locally and also which was there worldwide. The cocktail strategy of leadership also looked at merging the dream phase and motivating the elephant. Getting students and faculty who were the principal stakeholders in imagining an ideal IP experience. There was a lot of storytelling and emotional connections to be made to inspire commitment. The cocktail also drove us to shape the path. What are those actionable strategies to embed interprofessional education into the existing curricula? How do we actually remove barriers? There must be policies made, there must be structures, and most importantly, to support change, there must be incentives. And finally, there was a need to reinforce new habits. And for health professions educationists, continuous engagement, faculty development programs, training programs, feedback loops, and obviously, there was a need to celebrate even the small success stories that we drew from the experiences of the institute. So for us, collaborative leadership was probably a somersault, literally a somersault from me. Of course, the E remains the same way, but to we. From walls to building bridges, based on all the tenets of positive, strength-based leadership that we talked about. It was not about YFMs that we often hear about. It was not about what is in it for me. The Institute took a step forward. What is in it for us? And that was about the trench leadership that we talked about. Shoulder to shoulder. And to see that you are not directive or you don't direct it from an ivory tower, but shoulder to shoulder, you are with the people who are with you and what is in it for us. So essence of the approach as narrated by Lasso, learn from the people, plan with the people, begin with what they have, build on what they know. Of the best leaders, when the task is accomplished, the people all remark, we have done it ourselves. Who said X did this? Who said Y did this? It was not X or Y. It is we who have done this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely indebted to the MEU India for having invited me for this oration. And I remember, I have very fond memories of Dr. Rita Sood, including the times she visited Manipal, a very caring, very passionate, a true human being. My prayers with her, pranams with her. So just want to wind up by quoting Mahatma, become the change that you want to see. And then obviously that symbolizes what I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for a very patient listening.
Thank you, Siraj. As usual, it was a very excellent presentation, and many of these processes I have seen you, through you being implemented over the years. We are very honored to present to you this Rita Sood Oration Award. And I mean, it is our honor, and thank you very much for presenting this talk. The recording of this will be available on YouTube. It will be shared soon. So with this,
Thank you, Sanjay, once again. And I want to thank some of my mentors whom I can see here, Dr. Tejinder Singh, my friends and colleagues, Dr. Sujeta, Dr. Nirmala, Dr. Meda, Anshu, Chetna, number of them. Thank you so much, Mangini and Chinmay. So for taking time and being a part of this oration. Thank you, everyone, once again. And if I missed someone, apologies. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
thank you, Siraj. So with this, we end this session.